Twitter. Normally, my co-host Dan Turner would be with us, but he had something come up this evening. So Kyle Senra, he goes by Senra Says on Twitter, stepped up. Thank you. Appreciate you coming up last minute and being courteous and taking care of Dan's spot for us.
Absolutely. I've got the beard game going. Look a bit like Dan. So hopefully I can maybe speak better.
Well, you're on what? You do War Room Live on Sundays and Mondays? So
just Mondays. Gladys pulls double duty, but yeah, I do Monday night.
I knew somebody that I couldn't remember. So, and we've got two awesome guests tonight. It's the first show that we've had two guests instead of just one. Rocky and Dustin from the Dynasty Junkies podcast. Appreciate you guys coming on. I'll let you guys introduce yourself and tell those who aren't aware of your work where they can find it.
I'll let Rocky go first.
Oh, okay. Rocky talks about himself as the junkie number one, but I'm at Dynasty Junkie FF on Twitter. I'm co-host of the Dynasty Junkies podcast with Rocky over here on the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. Always around on Twitter, retweeting. DMs are always open. Always just out there talking about this game that we love. So any listeners out there, DMs are always open. If you guys just want to chat football, I'm always available. I'm just excited to be here, and thanks you guys for having us on. I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Right, and I let Dustin go first because everything he said basically goes for me too. The other co-host of Dynasty Junkies podcast, like he mentioned, the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, the DAP Network, also has Fantasy Timeline and Trade Addicts. So listen to those shows too. Everything on there is great, and there's going to be a new show from Casey Kasem coming soon, also. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. And like he said, other than that, I'm not writing or anything. I'm just on Twitter, always spouting my fantasy takes, and my DMs are open too. I've gotten plenty of them. So if you want to ask me a question, feel free.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the Survivor League that we had going on too? That's been pretty interesting. That Dustin and I are already bowed out, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I was out after week one.
I wasn't far behind you, so.
And from what I've heard, I think part of that is the connection to me, actually, with Dustin. They knew. They didn't like that, I think. But, yeah, it's a lot to get into. But, yeah, before the season started, I came up with this idea of kind of combining Survivor and fantasy football. So we have, like, two divisions or tribes, so to speak. And every week somebody gets voted out. But there's also fantasy matchups involved. And you can win challenges and things based on the matchups each week. And there's performance benchmarks to get hidden immunity idols. So it's been interesting. And
really even though we bowed out early, it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's hard to really explain it fully without taking like 10 minutes. So, but I don't want to do that on your show. But it's definitely interesting. I'm hoping maybe I can get more people to do it next year. And I think, the fact that Dustin knew me and he was friends with somebody else in there, which they also found out. They didn't like the connections going on into the game, so I think that hurt both of them.
Two on the other side,
and they're both out now too. Yeah.
So,
as a commissioner, that must be incredible. You rock, man.
God, yeah. I've said this to other people. I commission I think 6 or 7 other leagues. I spend so much more time on that league just week to week than I do on the 6 or 7 others combined. So yeah, it's crazy. Because I'm trying to come up with twists and turns for if you watch Survivor, I'm trying to do this kind of the same thing and throw stuff at them they're not expecting. So it's been fun now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely interested in joining again. If you do it next year, maybe we can get a couple of them going. But
yeah,
I've already been talking some strategy about next year, so I'm excited. I got some plans.
You can have that target on your back already for next year. So
yeah.
We'll dive into some news and notes. Just some rumors. Antonio Brown's suspension's getting ready to be up, at least the one that he's on currently. Who knows if he's going to get another one. Some rumors to Dustin, you're a Seahawks fan, that they're interested in him. You've also heard the Ravens, you've heard the Texans. Kyle, we'll start with you on this. Do you think that there's any chance that he's actually going to sign with anybody? And is he going to be fantasy relevant? No.
I'm a real professional there. I've done this before, clearly. Truthfully, it's tough to know what he was suspended for because 2019 Antonio Brown was like 2020 for the rest of us. It was a crazy whirlwind of nonstop would say action.
That's
glorifying a little too much of what he did. I don't know how much of that he actually got suspended for. I know there's a pretty serious case still going on right now, and that's of the worst things he's done. So I mean, if that gets resolved, I don't know if that's going to get resolved anytime soon, but if that I think a lot hinges on that. I suppose, we know how the NFL suspension process works. Something happens. I know everyone's kind of been talking, when's Melvin Gordon getting suspended? He's probably getting suspended next year. They tend to let things play out, and in the offseason, they hand down their suspensions. So it seems like, if he does sign, he'll be a safe bet to play the rest of the season. I know from a dynasty perspective, I really don't want to spend very much. Redraft him, fine on it, because, end of your bench and redraft always turning anyway. But in dynasty, it just there's still so much risk associated, and I mean, we assume there's reward. We assume that his game will translate and maintain even after 2 years off the field. It's never been about athleticism with him. But at a certain point, I mean, how much time off is too much time off? Is he going to be the same player? And if that upside isn't there, what are you really chasing with him? So I'm pretty hesitant. I don't think I'm going after him in dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm where Kyle is. I don't see. I think he probably will get signed somewhere. There's just too much kind of smoke going around now. But I just don't see much fantasy relevancy. Like, say he signs with the Seahawks, which is one of the big rumors. He's going to be the third wide receiver there. He's not going to get precedence over Lockett and DK. So, and I think that's going to be similar anywhere he goes. Plus, he's just got so many issues. I feel like it's kind of like with Josh Gordon. You'll be lucky if you get a few games out of him, and who knows how good those games will even be. What's 32 now? So, yeah.
Dustin, what you think?
Yeah, I think he will sign.
That's the question for you as a Seahawks fan.
Yeah. I mean, I think he will sign, and I think he will be with the Seahawks. There's just been a lot of talk about it today. Russell Wilson just came out a few minutes ago talking about Antonio Brown and that how great of a situation it would be and how great of a place we are for him, and so I think it's going to happen. I don't think it really changes Antonio Brown's value, but giving Russell that just another weapon, it's just going to continue to elevate him. We're already seeing what he's doing this year, and you give him Antonio Brown on the field. I think the biggest benefactor is going to be Russell. But like Kyle said, I'm not really touching him in redraft or in dynasty. I know, and I have a couple of shares of him that just picked him up off waivers. Once he signs, there'll be that big value bump, and I'll trade him then. Because I'm not going to expect anything. If he goes to Seattle, like Rocky said, he's going to be the third fiddle. He might want more, but he's not replacing DK or Lockett there. So I'm not really that interested. I'm not worried about him taking any production from them. That's kind of where I'm at, but I'll use him signing to sell him and just be completely done with him.
Yep. And that's what, me, Dan, and I kind of got into it on Saturday because that was one of my things for last week. I said, before the rumors start, you're going to have to blow fab on him. He's worth the pickup. I'm not saying drop somebody like Antonio Gibson, but if you got a bum like Golden Tate sitting on the end of your bench, pick up Antonio Brown. Maybe there is a chance that, he does sign with Seattle and somebody's willing to overpay for him. So that's the move for me, too. I think that if he's out there, if he's still out there, pick him up in hopes of trading him. If you want to stash him on the end of your bench, by all means. But I think that's the best route to go. Guys' values skyrocket when they come off a suspension and they're coming back from injury because people are enticed by the unknown. So it's like you said,
I would say don't drop him. Good point with Golden Tate. Don't drop him for any running back. I'd rather have Jermichael Hasty in a redraft league, which that's me. I'm crazy about Jermichael Hasty, but running back depth is so important. If you're gonna risk it with Brown, drop him for your backup tight end, or if it's a single quarterback league, a backup quarterback or any wide receiver. But do not drop him for any running back.
That spot that you're generally churning at the end of your bench to try to hit a lottery ticket. He's just as good as any of the others. So and then came out today that Des Bryant is possibly, and it looks like signing with the practice squad for the Ravens. I think we're probably all in agreement here. There's zero fantasy value here, right?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Slightly more than zero, but because the problem is his game, it was based on athleticism. So as he gets older and going through injuries, that's where his game is not nearly the same. It's never been about separation. It's been about out physically guys. I'm not sure that he could do that. And on such a low volume passing team, that's.
If anything, he's probably going to be a little more of a red zone presence for Lamar. But other than that, maybe teach some of the young guys some stuff. We do have a question from Marty. Do you guys feel the same way about Des Bryant to pick up and trade? Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get any of the same sort of return, but if you've got a spot that's kind of not really doing much, you might be able to find a old Homer Cowboys fan that wants them. So
yeah, I'm not. I don't feel near the same about Dez as I do with Antonio Brown. Like Dez has been out for so long, and like that team, like they want to run and play defense. Like they just got Yannick on as well in a trade today, so like they're going to be relying on defense even more. And like Lamar hasn't looked that good so far. Like and he's not going to throw the ball that much. Like, and Andrews is kind of the red zone guy. Like, and they're only signing to the practice squad, so it could really be like if he doesn't show anything, like he's not going to make the active roster. So I love the next question that just popped up. Sorry, I just saw that out of my corner of my eye.
My co-host on Mondays, Dan. Everyone.
Yep.
And I am also the Eagles fan here. Yeah, that's hilarious.
He is a Giants fan. For that is definitely what that's about.
He hit off on last Saturday with the more points Dak Prescott or Wentz for the rest of the season. So
there you go.
We do have another question. People in our reach you've already jumped on Dez. Man, you must have really big benches if that's the case. Only in the deepest of leagues would I even bother.
They don't even really get their younger, more talented at this point in their careers receivers that are on their team involved that much. I have no interest in Dez.
I completely agree. Well, we do have
ask Ryan Searfoss if he'd rather have Willie Snead or Des Bryant on the field. I'm sure that'd be interesting.
We do have a viewer question that was submitted earlier today on Twitter. It's from Isaac Seaborn. Rank these rookies for dynasty purposes: Antonio Gibson, James Robinson, or J.K. Dobbins. Rocky, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one. How would you rank those guys? Gibson, Robinson, and Dobbins.
I think that's pretty easy for me, and it's still what it would have been before the season, even with what James Robinson has done. It's J.K., then Antonio Gibson, and then James Robinson. Just because I just don't see a big future beyond this year for James Robinson. We've already seen him as the Jaguars have started playing worse. He's kind of slacked off a little bit. I've loved Dobbins ever since he was coming out. He was my RB2 pre-draft after Taylor. So I love the talent there. He just needs the opportunity. Gus and Mark Ingram keep getting in the way there, and Gibson, he's starting to grow on me. I know he hasn't produced the way Robinson has this year, but they are giving him more work than I expected. So I can see a future for him beyond this year more so than I can Robinson, but both are on bad teams. So I'd prefer Dobbins easily over the other two, and then probably Gibson slightly over Robinson, even though Robinson's producing more this year because he did say for Dynasty.
But even for Dynasty, I've been, sorry, Jay. Get a little ahead of you there. I at first I saw this question like, easy. Just basically what Rocky said, the same as it would have been before the season. But the production you're getting from Robinson right now, I'm not. And the thing is, I'm not really a big Antonio Gibson believer. James Robinson just really came out of nowhere. So I've never been a big fan, not really highly invested in him, and he can't beat out J.D. McKissick, even though Ron Rivera is talking like he was Christian McCaffrey. That concerns me. I know he's kind of started to get a little bit more red zone work now. It's not Peyton Barber's role as it looked like it was going to be after week 1. But I don't know. I think I'd rather have Robinson's production with the assumption that he's probably never going to be a lead back again versus Gibson, who may never get the chance to be more than just a satellite back. So, definitely Dobbins. Then I think I'm going Robinson slightly ahead of Gibson.
Yeah, I'm right there. To me, it's Dobbins, a pretty large gap after that, and then Robinson and Gibson. I'll take Robinson over Gibson. Gibson hasn't really looked that good, and I know the Washington football team isn't very good. That offense isn't really that good, but I just don't think. I know there was a lot of hype with Gibson, but like he never really did it in college. Like he didn't have really much production in college at all, and he hasn't really shown a ton in the league. James Robinson has. I don't know that James Robinson's going to keep the role after this year, so that's my concern. But I'll take the guy producing now, and I'll figure it out later. But it's Dobbins pretty easily.
I will say I was just looking at it, and Gibson is only about 26 points on the season behind James Robinson in PPR leagues. And, I mean, that's not nothing, but he also wasn't getting the work from the get-go like James Robinson was either. So I don't think you're necessarily losing a ton of, production by going with Gibson. But I think you might have – I don't think he's going to ever be like a lead back, and especially next year they could sign somebody at Washington. But I think he'll have a role there where I'm not positive James Robinson will have that much of a role there next year.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Rocky. It's like, and what everybody said, Dobbins is a couple tiers ahead of these guys. And I go slightly Gibson over Robinson, and simply because I don't think that, Robinson's producing, but he's not a grade A stud. I think they're going to draft somebody next year. He's putting up solid numbers this year, and Gibson's role is continuing to grow, especially in PPR leagues, which most people are on now. I would put Gibson slightly ahead. The only thing that does concern me is his lack of touches in college, and he still is only, he's behind McKissick 49% to 43% in snap count. So to be behind a guy like McKissick, that worries me. Everybody got all the offseason hype, the McCaffrey talk, but I think that he's completely different, and sometimes you gotta read into the coach speak and understand that it's not all it's cracked up to be. So we do have a few questions in the chat. If I could get my mouse to work. Let's see. What would you have Jalen Hurts value as in Dynasty? Hold or sell? Concerned Wentz owner. Rocky, will go with you as the resident Eagles fan since Dan decided not to show. What do you see as Jalen Hurts value in a Dynasty league right now?
I don't think it's very much at all. I've been saying this since they drafted him. I've never gotten the pick. They have tried to Taysom Hill him a little bit recently, did running a little bit. He did actually, I think, complete a pass in the last game. But Wentz isn't getting replaced anytime soon. So, I mean, he's got, I guess, some value as a quarterback in Superflex leagues. If it's not Superflex, he has pretty much no value to me. So I don't ever see him being more than a gadget guy. I guess maybe you can bank on another Wentz injury and hope to be able to sell him then, but I wouldn't pay more than a third for him at most in Dynasty right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I bet you right now they wish they used that pick on offensive lineman or another wide receiver.
Yeah.
In those lines. You guys have anything else to add?
I mean, I like the listener's question of, asking, sell to the Wentz owner. That might be the person who's willing to pay the most. So yeah, if you could ever get a second, I think accept that and get that second round pick.
I think you'd have to get a pretty new to Dynasty person to pay a second for.
Or again, someone who has Wentz and not a lot of quarterback depth.
Yeah,
it could be dependent on that.
And
do you go out and try and add maybe get like a Jacob Eason, for instance, someone else who's another backup, and you just get a pick added, and you still get to maintain some quarterback depth? Because I've got like dynasty teams where I think my three most rostered quarterbacks: Tannehill, Josh Allen, and Geno Smith. Just because you never know, right? The Seahawks offense. I know Wilson's never hurt. That's why Geno Smith is always available on every wire. But just in case, some superflex leagues, I hoard backup quarterbacks. Sometimes I've,
I actually have a decent amount of Chad Henne for that same reason.
Oh, there you go.
I think all my Tannehill teams, I have Trevor Woodworth as well. It's just in case he gets.
But yeah, I'm right there with these guys. Like if your Wentz owner wants or has any interest in Hurts, then I'm definitely selling him. Yeah. But I don't really think, like, I'm right there with these guys. Like, there's not a lot of value there. I'm not. The only time he's going to have value is if there's a injury to Wentz. I mean, I do like what Kyle said, like hoarding backup quarterbacks. I have a ton of them, especially this year. Like I thought there was going to be a lot more quarterbacks with COVID. So far, it's just been Cam. So I took a whole bunch of backup quarterbacks. So I like stashing him for that. But other than that, I don't think he really.
Yeah, and the thing though with him though is you have to pay like. Chad Henne and Geno Smith, we can just spend $2 of fab on.
Right.
You have to actually
Exactly.
spend a pick to get Hurts because everyone drafted him in Superflex leagues just because he was a rookie coming out as quarterback.
Yep, absolutely.
100%.
We got another question from the chat. Recently got T. Higgins for Dobbins. Thoughts? It's a PPR league. Needed wide receiver depth, and Higgins will be the number 4. What do you think, Dustin? We'll start with you on this one.
It's a really interesting trade. Kind of, if I was good at running back and I need a wide receiver depth, like obviously he said, or if I was a contender, I would probably take that deal because like Dobbins still has 2 running backs in front of him right now, and Higgins is his production is increasing every week. Like he had over 120 yards this last week. Like Higgins is the future there, and they're bringing him along pretty quickly. I still think I like Dobbins more long term. I think Dobbins is just an all around going to be an all-star Pro Bowl back, and I just love what he brings to the table. But if I was a contender or I had lots of running back depth, I don't hate this deal. I think you could still, in dynasty leagues, you could probably still get Higgins plus something for Dobbins, like a third or like a Mims. Get a guy that hasn't played yet. I've been trying to buy Mims all over right now until he comes back on the field. But I think you could get Higgins plus for Dobbins, but I don't hate it straight up.
Buy Mims now before Trevor Lawrence is his quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah, I was echo basically what Dustin said. Do prefer Dobbins as a player, but getting Higgins to be your 4th wide receiver, assuming Dobbins is a little bit further down in your running back depth for that, and again, have to be a contender because if you're rebuilding, you'd probably rather have Dobbins next year than Higgins.
Yep, completely agree. It's excuse me, it's not bad value. I'm more of I like to go running back heavy, so it would be hard for me to give up a guy like Dobbins, especially in the situation that he's in. But again, to echo what you guys said, if you're a contender, you're looking to win now, that's definitely a fair deal. You might have been able to get a little more for Dobbins, but the T. Higgins hype is continuing to increase. So I could definitely see where, that's the type of deal that you would have to pull. So, not bad at all.
I do have a feeling that Dobbins is this is gonna be his week. Ingram's banged up. I just have a feeling like his time is coming here pretty soon, and it might be this week.
He's on bye this week, so
yeah, it'll be next week.
Next, yeah.
Ingram won't outscore him this week, though. We know that for sure.
Yeah, but like, okay, his next game, like I definitely think like he's.
I feel like his time's about to come, just like it was building up with Swift.
Yeah, and you usually see this with rookie running backs, like with a guy in front of them, like later in the season when you get towards your fantasy playoffs or get towards November is when they really start, like they've learned the offense, and I think that's what's going to happen with Dobbins. His time is about there.
Championships last year, so I was very happy about that. So
yeah.
Speaking of T. Higgins and a big-bodied receiver, I noticed my co-host Dan mentioned a question about Hakeem Butler tonight. I checked on Twitter, the Eagles' official inactives. Butler's not on the inactive list, and as someone who's on the active roster, I believe now, or did he get?
I'm not 100% sure.
He's still in the practice squad.
I think he is still in the practice squad, so I don't think they have to make him active,
okay.
or inactive.
Yeah.
I don't think he's playing tonight, but I'm not 100% on that.
All right.
Or active tonight.
Right. We do have another question from Marty. Sterling Shepard is active. Is he somebody to start? And then he also asks Shepard or John Brown. So I'm guessing that's the question that he's asking. Rocky, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think? Would you start Shepard? And if you would you go him over John Brown?
I'd rather not start Shepard. I don't love starting guys coming off an injury anyway. If it's a Julio, I'm going to start him. Is Sterling Shepard, I'd rather see him back in action first, see how much usage he gets. Yep. I don't know how healthy Sterling Shepard is. That said, John Brown isn't healthy either, so I think he missed practice again today. And he did play, I believe, last game, but I believe he got a bagel. So is that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah. So
even though he played 96% of the snaps, that tells me he's healthy. Maybe just not healthy enough to be out there. Maybe it seemed like it would be more of a decoy. I think if they were both fully healthy, it'd be easy John Brown.
Agreed.
And it seems like Brown is the healthier of the two. Great matchup against the Jets. I know as much as it is a good matchup against the Eagles secondary. Sorry, Rocky. Thanks for getting Darius Slay out of the NFC North, though. Appreciate that. But yeah, I think it's John Brown easy.
Yeah, I actually think I would go Shepard just because I don't know that John Brown's going to play. Like, if he's not, he missed practice again today, and they're playing the Jets. Like, they're not going to really have any, like, why risk playing him? Like, Gabriel Davis has looked really good the last couple of weeks. So, you don't need John Brown to beat the Jets. Like, and he's already missing this week's practice. I don't like starting Shepard, but if those are your two options, I think I would go with Shepard just because I know that he's going to play. I don't know that John Brown will, but there has to be somebody else on your roster, Marty.
I know. That's where I was going with that. I
pick up a streamer.
Would rather not do either, but Shepard and like you said, like Kyle was saying, Slayton's the only guy I really worry about because I expect Slay to be on him most of the time. So if Shepard is relatively healthy, he could get him and Ingram. I think could get some work.
Yep, and I echo what pretty much everybody said. In a perfect world, I wouldn't want to start Shepard. If it's between Shepard and Brown, I would go Shepard just because, now more than ever in 2020 with COVID and everything going on, you want the guy that's going to play.
Yeah.
We could wake up Sunday morning and, like today with the Raiders, they've got some positive tests. So now more than ever, you're going to want to go with the guy who's actually playing. I would definitely look somewhere else. Just same thing. I don't like playing guys coming off of injury. And I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to do too great. Giants don't have that great of a history in prime time in Philadelphia. So, granted, this isn't Eli, but I'm not expecting a whole lot out of the Giants, unfortunately. I'm a realist, but
this
pretty much.
And assuming, again, if you're talking about starting Shepard, you've been holding on this whole time. Maybe not crazy about this idea, but if you're really looking for a streamer, I'd drop Shepard knowing that he locks and he can't be picked up on the weekend. And if he doesn't have a good game, he's probably not going to be that sought after on the waiver wire, and you could probably get him back Wednesday. If you really just wanted to make that swap for a week, if you're really stuck and you didn't have anyone else and you wanted to parachute out for John Brown, that's how I would play it.
Okay.
I just did that in a league with Darius Slayton, actually. Just knowing I shouldn't drop Slayton. There's no way he's getting picked up, but I dropped him this morning knowing he's locked till Wednesday, and I can try and I'll figure it out Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. We got another question from the chat. We got a bunch tonight. We need two: DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb, or Mike Williams. And then need two Jacobs with an O-line. Well, we'll start there. So need two out of DJ Moore or CeeDee Lamb or Mike Williams.
First two, CD and Moore.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. They're guys that are locked in my lineup every week.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I like Mike Williams, but a lot of his production in the last game came when Keenan Allen went out with back spasms. He's going to put up some solid games, but he's going to be inconsistent. Kyle, what you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb. I almost said CeeDee Williams. Dalton's not playing on Monday night, so maybe assuming that they'll be a bit better. I don't know that the Washington defense is a better matchup necessarily than the Cardinals defense. Probably is from a secondary perspective, so easier coverages, maybe a more difficult pass rush. So, take your choice there. But yeah, I echo what everyone else said. Moore and Lamb.
And then Jason asked one more question. Need two out of Jacobs with his O-line issues, Robinson or Justin Jackson.
Jacobs and Robinson still. I'm not taking Jacobs out of my lineup.
Yeah, Jacobs is one of those guys I'm willing to risk that game getting postponed and taking a 0 just because of the upside. And Robinson against the Chargers, yeah, probably, because it seems like Justin Jackson's maybe hurt again. So, yeah, go with the healthy guys.
Yeah, I'm with both of them, yeah. And Robinson, even if the Chargers stop him in the running game, could get some passing game work. So, I would go with those two as well.
Clean sweep, I agree. You said Jackson was hurt? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's got a questionable tag now suddenly in the week. So I don't know how serious it's going to be.
Any Boston Scott hype this week? What do you guys think? He's going to do anything tonight, or do you think he's going to fall flat on his face like week 1?
He has been a giant killer.
Darrell Henderson was supposed to do amazing against the Giants and didn't, right? Like that was the week where, Henderson's coming out, everyone's going to start him. And no, but I think I'm starting Scott in a couple places. So yeah, I'm willing to take the risk on him. Just knowing how hurt the Eagles are and figuring they're probably going to want to run the football a lot.
And again, they do have Deshaun Jackson coming back, but they don't have a lot of guys in the short passing game with the tight ends banged up and Miles Sanders banged up. So Boston Scott could definitely get some work there too. I like him. I don't think it's any kind of blow up week or anything, but I think he's serviceable if you're hurting at running back with buys and injuries and
could
stuff.
do a lot worse. I tried to pick him up in my home league. I couldn't get him because I had Barkley, Chubb, and Sanders. So I'm happy to start Philip Lindsay and Joshua Kelly this week. So it's pretty rough. But
I mean, the thing with Scott, I mean, Jackson coming back, that probably loosens things up for Scott, right? That threat is going to maybe push the defense back a little bit. So yeah, I like Scott this week.
Yeah.
All right. We got another question from YouTube. Thoughts on Juju and Dynasty? Too unproductive to sell currently, but does he improve on a new team next year? Are his best days behind him?
So I've been struggling with this. He's still a young receiver. I definitely think he's going to be gone from Pittsburgh next year. Like, I think everyone in the community agrees with that. But he's still, I think he's going to be 24 as a free agent. He's had a 1,400-yard season. Like, you're talented to be able to do that. Like, that's just not going to happen. I think that he just doesn't fit the direction of Pittsburgh. So I'm actually I'm not worried about selling him right now. I would hold or try to buy Juju right now. His value, because he's going to get a bump with a big game, because everyone's still going to see the flashes of Juju, or when he signs with a team. We see most of the time when receivers switch teams, they kind of have a down year. But I think like Juju's still so young that he's going to be able to go into a good opportunity, and that his value will climb when he switches teams this offseason. So I would try to buy the dip right now and hold him for next year.
I agree with Dustin. I like buying him. I think if you're a contender, it's too risky if you're giving up pieces that are scoring for you. But I like the idea of buying him low if you can get him for maybe as low as a first or something like that, with how, especially after this last game where he had 2 catches for 6 yards. He only has 1 game with over 6 targets all year. So I don't know if you can get him that low, but I definitely think he's going to increase in value after this year. I think Pittsburgh is letting him go, which I think Dustin said. So a new team, maybe bigger role. For whatever reason, it's not working out in Pittsburgh anymore. So buy him low, but not if you're contending. Unless you have first to throw around,
Yeah, because those late first, that's what they use for, right? You want
exactly.
use that as a starter on your team eventually. So
yes,
makes sense.
You could probably get him right now for a first. Like
you might,
first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with what you guys said. So I'm gonna move on to the next question. We got a big one from Garcon. In a Dynasty League 16 team, full PPR, 1 quarterback league, made a trade for Swift, Denzel Mims for Josh Jacobs. Can you guys see the whole roster?
I can see it.
Most of it, yeah.
Was it a good trade? So, we'll just get another thank you from him. So basically, it's
Swift. Thank you everyone for your questions and listening as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? You know what? Josh Jacobs is one of the toughest running back schedules for the rest of the season. And I think Swift's going to wind up being, like I've said a few times, he's going to be one of those, like a Miles Sanders last year. I really think he's going to turn it on the rest of the season if Patricia's able to get his head out of his butt and give him the ball. Because even with his big game last week, he wound up, they still pretty much split the backfield. So I think it's a decent trade. I don't know, Dynasty, if I would have done that, if you don't think that Swift's going to take over, and you needed the win now guy with Jacobs, then yeah, I think it's solid. But long term, I would rather have the Swift and the Mims side. Okay.
Yeah.
So then he clarified. So okay.
And I know Gerson's a Raiders fan, so that must have been painful to trade away Jacobs. But the key here, 16 team leagues. So anytime you can make a 2-for-1 in a 16 teamer, Mims is probably going to be starting for you, depending on how deep the starting requirements are. But 16 doesn't have to be that deep for it to be kind of a struggle. So, yeah, by next year you might prefer Swift over Jacobs, 1-for-1. I think it was a really good sign this week that they won the game and he was heavily involved, because 2 weeks ago he wasn't, or I guess it was before the bye week. So 3 weeks ago, they beat, I think it was Arizona. I think they got revenge for that tie that they got the year before. he was barely on the field. It was all Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson. And it seemed like, okay, Swift is going to be the pass catcher when they're behind, which you figured would be often enough. It'd be good. But when they're leading, is he going to be the guy? And he ended up getting carries and a win. So that was a really good sign. It seems like he's now fully past Kerryon Johnson. Maybe that changes again next week. Tough for Matt Patricia to get his head out of his butt when his entire body's a butt, including his brain. So as a Packers fan, sign him to a 10-year extension. Keep Patricia on the Lions. That's great. I'm fine with it. But
yeah, Kyle said everything I wanted to say. 16-team league, you want depth, you want extra guys, especially in a year like this, a COVID year, and like you just want that extra depth. Like now, this doesn't help your depth right this minute with Mims, but he's going to be back here in the next couple of weeks, and I think yeah. So like you just want the depth, and I don't think you're going to lose that much between Swift and Jacobs. I love Jacobs personally. So it's close to me, but in that deep of a league, you want as much depth as you can get.
I was going to echo what Dustin said about possibly not losing that much, because I do think this is a sign Swift's going to be getting used more. I still think he's going to be inconsistent, but I don't think Jacobs is as consistent as people think. He's got 2 games with 5 touchdowns this year combined in those 2 games, 3 and 2. In the other 3, he doesn't have more than 13.5 points, PPR points. So, he's pretty touchdown dependent. He is getting more work in the receiving game, but he's not doing a lot with it. Even in the running game, he obviously is the guy there, but he's not getting tons. He doesn't have a 100-yard game this year. So if he doesn't score touchdowns, Swift, I think, might get you more points a lot of weeks on the weeks that Jacobs doesn't score a touchdown or 2. And I don't think he's an absolute touchdown machine in the Raiders offense either. So
because it's getting to the point where Swift's basically an every week starter for you. You're not just picking matchups anymore, I think.
Yeah, and he's definitely going to be even more involved in the passing game than Jacobs is in PPR.
Well, it's all the questions we got in the chat right now, which is, that was a lot of questions, so we might have to run through these a little quicker than anticipated, but we're going to move on to the topics we're going to discuss, and we've got 5 things. I read a 10 things to know about the current week article for Going for 2. These are 5 of those subjects that we're just all going to touch base and give our opinions on. So one of the biggest stories this week is Tua taking over for Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins. Rocky, we'll start with you. What do you think the fantasy value is, the fantasy impact in Miami with Tua taking over?
Yeah, I don't expect to see a lot of Tua right out of the gate. We've seen Herbert's performed pretty well, but I think he's got better weapons around him. And Burrow's been up and down. These guys didn't have an off season, and you always expect rookie QBs to struggle a little bit. So I think it's a little knock to basically the whole offense. Nobody there besides Parker and I guess Gaskin at running back was really super fantasy relevant. Gesicki hasn't really been what we were hoping, and Preston Williams definitely hasn't. I know you're a fan of his.
I'm a big but the truth hurts. It is what it is. He definitely hasn't done what I thought he would.
So yeah, I don't think Tua will be putting up the numbers that Fitz did, and I'm not sure he's going to be throwing it around, like crazy the way Fitz will, and just hope the guy catches it either. So I think the biggest impact is going to be to Parker, because he's the main guy besides I guess Gaskin that everybody's starting on a week-to-week basis, and he's not been totally consistent himself, and I think we're just going to see that continue to even a further degree.
Dustin, what you think?
Yeah, I don't think much of Tua this year. I think we'll see the biggest jump from him year 2. So Miami is actually my dark horse for Juju next year. This might be a little hot takey, but they built this draft around the line and their defense is kind of starting to show up pretty well, and they need that receiver. And I think that he fits what Miami wants to do with the future there. So I actually see like Juju going to Miami, and I think that would be good for Tua next year. We'll see. Obviously, like a lot of things happen, and I get caught up in narratives. But I tend to be a lot right a lot on the show. You can ask Rocky about it. I all joking aside, I'm not like I think he'll have some flashes here this year, but I don't like his weapons and I don't like his running game, so it's just not a good fit from this year. But Arrow's up for year 2 because they're going to get some weapons next year.
Yeah, and I pretty much similar to what you guys said. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot in the passing game. I could see Tua kind of having a rookie year like Lamar did. You'll see some flashes where he'll make some big plays. He'll be decent where you can start him in bye weeks and in super flex leagues. He could be a decent QB2 at certain times, but I think next year is going to be the year to have him. The only value I could see changing in the passing game if he comes in there, and like a lot of rookie quarterbacks do, if he locks into one guy, if Gesicki becomes his guy, or I can only hope and pray. I doubt it, but Preston Williams becomes his guy. But more likely than not, it's going to be Parker who he targets in on, and I could see Gaskin getting a little extra work if they want to ease into a. Not a huge value bump. Gaskin has been more of a volume versus production guy. He hasn't done anything too flashy. He's getting the ball, and that's what, this year especially, you want a guy who's on the field and you want a guy who's getting the ball, and he's got both of those things going for him. So I could see a very slight bump up for him. Nothing too crazy, but.
And I mean, this will come out in my full press coverage. Sorry, Dustin, but Red Zone Report. Myles Gaston right now is second in the league in red zone opportunities. Only Derrick Henry has more red zone carries and targets. So, right? Yeah. Dustin, sorry, I'm going to interrupt and talk some more, but good point about Juju because going to the Dolphins, because they're currently 7th in projected cap space for 2021. And, a few teams ahead of them, Washington, New England, Indianapolis, they're all going to be looking for quarterbacks next year. So that they're going to have to spend big money there, whereas the Dolphins don't have that problem. So they might be a heavy favorite to get a guy like Juju. I can see the Jaguars and the Jets and Baltimore being the only team. And I mean, Baltimore's probably going to want to, re-sign all these players they've traded for. So they may not have that much competition to get Juju. So yeah, I do like that call.
Plus the comment.
They go ahead. Yeah, I saw the comment. Like they have two firsts from the Texans in their pick. And if you're Juju, you're going to go to the Jets or the Jags, or you're gonna go to Miami with Tua. Like you're probably gonna go to Miami. Like Miami was already trying to get Bell, so they're trying to add playmakers. I do think that if any guy's gonna have a slight uptick, it actually might be your boy Preston Williams. I know during camp they brought Preston Williams on kind of slow, and so he was practicing with the second stringers. I know this is camp and whatever narrative street, but those backup quarterbacks that come in, like they have those rapport with those second stringers that they practiced with, and that was Preston Williams. So really we could see that connection happen in the games. I hope, just because I love Preston Williams, so I hope it's a thing.
You're lucky Dan isn't here, because Dan is sick and tired of hearing about Preston Williams, because I talk about him all the time, and it never fails. Every episode so far that we've had at least one, if not two, Preston Williams questions. So, but yeah, that's a really good point about, you see it all the time. It's proven when the backup quarterback comes in and he's comfortable with the second tier players, it time and time again, that winds up being the case. So maybe there is a little bit of hope for us Preston Williams troopers. We'll go on to the next subject, and what does the fantasy value for the Eagles offense look like the rest of the season? Dustin, we'll start with you on this one.
So I think Earl is up for Wentz. We talked a little bit about this last night, and I think Wentz is producing better than what people think he is. Now, a big part of that is coming rushing wise, but I still think that's going to stay. I'm going to steal some of Rocky's points so he can't use them, but like their line's coming back. Goddard's going to be coming back. Deshaun's coming back. Rager, Alshon, they're all going to be coming back. Like he's going to get his weapons back. And like, yeah, he had a couple weeks where he was atrocious. He was bad, but like he's figured it out the last couple weeks. And he continues to have that rushing floor. But when they get healthy, like that the arrow is going to be pointing up for that offense, but I think it's really just going to help Wentz. I still this year I don't know if I trust any one weapon just because they've been so in and out of the lineup, but I think arrow's pointing up for Wentz.
And yeah, Dustin did steal a lot of my thunder. We, like as he said, we talked about this on Junkies last night. One point that I mentioned then that he didn't mention too, though, is that I think that the schedule is very favorable coming up. They got the Giants twice who aren't pushovers, but I think he can have good games against them. The Cowboys twice, who are awful. The Seahawks. and the Browns, the Packers are middle of the pack against the pass. Even the Saints are middle of the pack. So most of the teams left on his schedule are mediocre to not good against the pass. And as Dustin said, he also seems to be running more this year. 4 rushing touchdowns already, a lot of attempts, more so than usual. And the other guy I would just mention too is I love when he comes back, Dallas Goedert. We've already seen Zach Ertz is not what he was before. I don't know what that's about. I mentioned yesterday, I think some of it might be mental with the whole contract situation. But I think he's a little it's hard to believe at 29 he's already washed up. So I think that has to be part of it. But I just love Goddard once he comes back, especially if he gets a game or two in before Ertz does, which it sounds like he will, because I heard today they're saying Goddard might not be back till week 10, but they're also talking 4 to 6 weeks for Ertz. So if you can buy with any kind of injury discount on Goddard, I love that idea.
We do have a question from the chat too. Read that before he got injured, they were looking to trade Ertz. Do you think that would increase Richard Rodgers' value? What do you think, Rocky, since you're the resident Eagles fan on the chat tonight?
I actually haven't really heard much about trading him other than just, sports talk chatter from people, callers and things like that. I haven't heard legit stuff about it being traded. And I don't think it – I mean, I guess it increases Richard Rodgers' value from what it is now, which is like 0. But if that were to happen – but – it wouldn't make me that much more interested in him because Goddard's going to be there if they trade Ertz. They do like to use 2 tight end sets, but it probably just means he'd be getting about what he's getting now, which is 5-6 points a game, fantasy points. So I don't think it increases it very much at all.
Yeah, I'm right there. Like Richard Rodgers, he's a wait and see for me. I'll wait and see if he's involved and go from there. I think it might be like the comment earlier. It might be a time for Hakeem Butler. We'll see. I'm gonna let the situation play itself out. I'm not really interested in picking up any of those guys for now.
Kyle, you have anything you'd like to add?
For sake of brevity, I don't think so. I think everyone covered that pretty well. So we'll move on.
We'll move on. With Baker Mayfield struggling, you guys still think that he's the future at quarterback position for the Browns? Rocky, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I still think he's the quarterback of the future, or at least the near future. He was playing after the first game against, I think it was the Ravens. He was playing fairly well for a few games there, then got banged up against the Colts. Not amazing stats-wise, but from a real-life perspective, he was managing games. He wasn't turning it over. And then had a tough game against the Colts where they were a very good defense, and he got hurt. And then he was still banged up going into this week and against a good defense again. So not so great the last 2 games, but I also just think they're gonna win enough. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I did look it up when I saw you mention this question, and it's hard not to see at least maybe 9 wins there when they're already got 4. So I think they're gonna have a winning season. They possibly could make the playoffs. So I don't think they're gonna move away from Baker. I don't really love him as a fantasy prospect anymore. He's like QB 20 something right now, and I don't think they want him to throw a lot. But in terms of the question you asked is still the QB of the future, at least through 2021, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I just pulled up the schedule. They definitely have some winnable games. They still play the Giants. They still play the Jets.
The Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles. Houston, Cincinnati this week. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Also, too, I definitely think he's the quarterback of the near future. But, if you'd have asked me this question at the beginning of the season, I said, yeah, of course he is. But I will say my faith is just a little shaken. What was big about him was his accuracy, and he hasn't shown that this year. He's been holding on to the ball too long. The offensive line isn't what it was. He's been overthrowing the ball a lot. And one big thing, too, is they're going to have to decide before the beginning of the year, beginning of next year, if they want to, I got to pull this up, sign him to pick up his option for 2022, and that's a guaranteed $25 to $30 million. So that's a lot of money. Granted, quarterbacks don't grow on trees, and people give out big contracts to guys like Mike Glennon. So I definitely think that he's going to be, but I went from 100% confidence to maybe down to about 80, 85%. I think if he continues to regress, if he doesn't show what because he did at the beginning of the season, he did start out it wasn't the fantasy performance, but as a strictly NFL quarterback, he was looking good. So I do think if he continues to regress, there might be more of a question. But for right now, I would say they're most likely going to stick with him.
Yeah, you bring up really good points with them having to pick up his option and that money. I don't know if you listeners or you guys listen to Dynasty and Chill by Scott Connor. Like, he's fantastic. But his thoughts were that there's going to be a lot more change at quarterback than usual. Like, he doesn't see a lot of these quarterbacks like picking up their second options. Like, we're going to see more if you're not performing on your rookie deal, like, you're just done and we're going to get somebody else. We're just going to keep trying and keep drafting quarterbacks every year until we find one. And I don't know that that's going to happen with Baker. I still believe in Baker, but if he continues, if he doesn't progress at all and they don't win with him, then they're going to move on. Like, they have probably one of the most talented rosters in the league, and if they can't win, then they will find somebody that can. Like we saw, and I know part of it was injury, but like we saw Keenum come in, and Keenum is a good game manager. Like, he's not going to go out and win you a game, but he's not going to lose you a game. So like and that's what the Browns need. Like, with that team and what they want to do, like I still believe in Baker, but like I'm more cautious than I was, just because I don't know that they're going to want to pay him 25 to 30 million a year. Like, they're going to have people that they want to start paying on that team. Like, they've drafted some defensive players, and like they've gotten some linemen. Like, they're going to want to start paying people. And like, do you pay Baker 30 million a year, or do you go and draft somebody else, or go sign somebody else? And so I think we're going to start seeing that a lot more in the league. And there's also, if the cap goes down the next couple of years, like it's talking, like they might not be able to afford $30 million on a Baker. So I still like him. I think I am still optimistic, but not as much as I was.
I will say, I know, without getting in really long into this, I think there is a chance the cap might not go down. They just signed the CBA, and if the NFL and the NFLPA really want to, and I'm assuming both will be in that interest, they can borrow from years 7, 8, 9, 10 of the cap, and most players won't be in the league, so they obviously won't care. So I'm more on the side that the cap's not going down, and maybe because we saw a lot of quarterback turnover this year, a lot of free agents. I don't know if the Browns, they're middle of the pack right now in cap space. As you mentioned, they've got all these guys to pay. So it seems like if Baker's getting replaced, it's with another rookie. They're probably not going to be able to afford a veteran unless they're seriously compromising the integrity of the team. And so I think if you're doing that and you're blowing it up, you may as well just restart with a rookie quarterback. So yeah, I don't think he's getting replaced until the end of his rookie contract. So you got, I think, another 2 years safe.
We'll start with you on this one, Dustin. Would you buy, sell, or hold Cam Newton?
I'm holding Cam Newton. That it's a tough situation. They've had injuries. They don't have the best receiving core out there, but he still looks pretty good. His rushing like is going to be there. I think that's what they want him to do. He's on that 1-year prove it deal. Like, he'll either be back in New England or he'll be getting a job somewhere next year. So I'm holding Cam. Like, my biggest concern with Cam in the offseason was if he's healthy or not. He's showing that he's healthy, so I'm holding Cam. I'm not worried about his long-term value now that we're seeing him on the field. So I'm holding or buying him. But I know his price kind of jumped a lot at the beginning of the year. Just people seeing him in New England and seeing him perform the first couple of weeks, that I don't know that I want to pay the price right now. So I'm just going to hold the shares that I have and be good right there.
Yeah, I don't like. I'm sorry. You can go, Kyle.
I was going to say maybe a slight buy window right now from what it was. I'm sure the value has gone down over the last month. Just him getting COVID and having to miss time and just on that, the fact that their teams had a bye week. He's already missed 1 game. With 2 less games, he still leads all quarterbacks in red zone opportunities, carries inside the 5, and he leads all Patriots players in red zone opportunities. So he is their primary red zone weapon. So I kind of like buying him right now. If it's a little any lower than it was earlier in the season, I think go after that, especially in super flex leagues. You can never have too many quarterbacks. Roster Geno Smith.
And yeah, I think he's a definite hold. I don't as Dustin will tell you. I don't generally pay for quarterbacks if I don't have to. So I don't like to pay up. And like you said, maybe there's a slight dip now, but I still think somebody would want more than I'd be willing to give up for Cam. But if I have him, I'm holding. Like Dustin said, seeing the health, the other thing I was worried about is even if he was healthy, would he be running as much at this age? And he's been running, like Kyle just alluded to, he's been running as much as ever, So I definitely think he's a hold. I think his value probably goes up even more as we get through the year, and he keeps running and scoring touchdowns. So I definitely wouldn't be selling him.
I think I'm right. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I might be there with Kyle that he's a buy. Like right now in a points per game scoring, Cam is quarterback 6 in points per game, and I know he missed a game because of COVID. I don't think anyone knows that he's quarterback 6 in points per game right now. Like, I don't think you're having to pay top 10 prices for him right now. So I think he's right with there is a buy window right there for him. You're going to get top 6 production for him right now, and you could probably get him for, a QB 15 price. So, I think at that point, if you can get for that price, then he's a definite buy.
And the last of the 5 things that we're going to talk about from my article, who, if anybody, is going to emerge from the Ravens backfield to be fantasy relevant this year? Rocky, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I got to think it's J.K. Dobbins, but like you said, if anybody, it might be the best answer. Like, I don't know that there will be anybody. If all 3 stay healthy, Gus Edwards is almost like sort of like the running back Taysom Hill, just coming in to muck everything up for the other guys there. Dobbins is clearly the most talented at this point in their careers. Ingram's looking old, and Gus is nice and has actually produced fairly well, but Dobbins definitely has more talent than he does. So I got to think he's going to take over at some point. I'm hoping he does because I have a lot of Dobbins in both redraft and dynasty, so it would help some of my playoff runs. But I think what we might see is just this 3-headed monster unless Ingram or Gus goes down.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like right now, with the way that just kind of the landscape is in Baltimore, if it was right now, I don't want any of them. Like if I had to start one right like next week when they're not on a bye. But I still think like long term, it's Dobbins' backfield. Like they took him early. Like they want him to be the guy. Gus Edwards is a fine like backup guy. But I do think like if Ingram stays banged up, then Dobbins will take over. Like I don't think they ever want Gus to be the starter. Like so, it's either Ingram or Dobbins as the starter, and Gus will remain like to change the pace back in the backup. That's how I think they want it to be. I don't want anything to do with Gus. It's Dobbins or Ingram for me for the rest of the season. But next year and beyond, it's easily Dobbins for me.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Dobbins is the guy who, if anybody's going to emerge from this backfield, I would be him. It would definitely have to take Ingram, this injury or another injury, or them just deciding to start giving Dobbins the ball. But our guy Ryan Searfoss had a player thread about Dobbins 2 days ago that was really interesting, and I want to pull it up here. Just go over some of the stuff he's talking about. So yards per attempt, he's got 6.2. He leads all the Baltimore running backs. He leads all Baltimore running backs in targets with 14, receptions with 11, 74 yards. Fantasy points per opportunities at 1.57, which is 8th in the NFL. He ranks 4th in run block efficiency, 17th in breakaway runs. And he's got, last year, Ravens' top running back had 29 targets. Dobbins already has 14, so he's shown that he can do it when he gets the opportunity. That's just it. They just got to give him the ball. So, if somebody is disheartened in Dynasty with what they see, that they're still, I think they're, he's still got the high snap percentage, 36%, but Gus Edwards right behind him at 34 and Mark Ingram at 29, so it's a virtual tie for snap percentage. Unless that changes, it's not going to. Nobody's going to break out, but hopefully Dobbins is going to be that guy.
Yeah, like this is the time to buy right now before he blows up. Like he scored those 2 touchdowns in week 1, and then everyone's like, "Oh, Dobbins is here!" Like, and then he's kind of dipped now. Like we all know, like come later in the season, his time's he's gonna shine. So this is the time to buy him right now, or you're not gonna buy him.
He's gonna be a monster in this offense.
Yep.
We got another question from YouTube. It recently sold Minshew, Crowder, and Mark Andrews for Lamar in Dynasty Superflex. Does Lamar's production this year concern you? I like
not
that.
Enough to not make that trade. That's a smash. Just because this time next year,
deal.
In Superflex leagues, you need a quarterback to get a quarterback a lot of times, and Minshew may not be a starter next year. So I don't necessarily love paying the cost of an elite tight end like Andrews, but I think you can make that up somewhere. Get the elite quarterback.
Will blow up, so that that helps a little bit, at least ease the pain. But the defense is better. Lamar's been banged up. He was having knee issues. You could tell it was affecting his rushing, and he doesn't. They've been blowing out teams in games other than Kansas City. He hasn't had to be the Lamar last year, so he's definitely still has the talent. That was especially in Superflex. That was a fantastic deal. I would, like you said, instant smash accept on that one.
Yeah, great job with that trade.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, yes, like I think Lamar's been a little polarizing. I think people that took him like in the top 3 or 4 of a Superflex startup, like yes, you're not happy with the performance, but he's still quarterback 7 on the season right now. Like, but you're not paying top 2 startup pick in this trade. Like Kyle talked about, this is a snap accept, and Rocky talked, or I think it was Jay talked about Minshew not being a starter next year. Whoa, he's got 8-21 first. Okay, anyways, that's a whole. I just saw that comment pop up. That's fantastic. I don't know
that's unreal.
Yeah, I don't know that Andrews is the elite tight end talent that we think he is. Like, he's got big games here and there, but they just don't throw. He doesn't have enough receptions, really. Like, now it's hard because the tight end landscape is so gross, but outside of a couple big games at the start of the season, he hasn't really done that much, and he's just not on the field enough, to be that consistent stud tight end that is going to to sway this deal for me. Like, Minshew might not be a starter next year. Crowder, it's Crowder. He's a good guy, and Mark Andrews, you're getting a top, a 23-year-old quarterback that you're going to have for the next 10 seasons.
And just to expand upon what Jan Kelly is saying, I'm still open to trading Lamar at this point. If you can get a better return than what you gave up, a better quarterback that you could have more stability than behind Minshew, because some people might still see the name and I don't know that his value has necessarily dropped all that much. I would say, don't force the issue. If you can't find a deal you're happy with selling Lamar, then hold him, because he's going to maintain value for at least the next couple seasons. But certainly not opposed to moving him if you can get the right deal.
In Superflex, I would have a real hard time dealing with Lamar. But
you got to get a quarterback back. But if you can, I think the type of deal,
if you can get a King's ransom, then yeah.
Well, but what I would do, so if you with Lamar in those 8-21 first, if you can move Lamar in one of those first to get Mahomes, I would do it. So he's in a position right now where I think he can go get Mahomes with these picks. Now,
I would say try and move.
I don't know that you can actually get Mahomes. If I have Mahomes, he's basically non-tradable for me. But you don't need all those picks, and some of those are not going to hit. So, if you can turn Lamar in the first in Mahomes,
I like that. I like that Dak Plus,
or that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you mentioned rebuilding, right? So Dak's the perfect quarterback to target in a rebuild.
Yeah.
I think what I would do with a lot of these first is try and hold them as late as possible, maybe even when they're on the clock, and try and sell them for young assets that'll help you win next year. That's that. With that many firsts, the first few, you draft the elite players, and then the later first, try and sell them for any young wide receivers or any young running backs you can get.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, with those picks and rebuilding, I'm always constantly moving just to get extra pieces. So if you can get Dak Plus for him right now, I'm not worried about Dak long term. His type of injury is one that's a long term concern.
They're saying 4 to 6 months. So by the time the draft comes around next year, he should be fully healthy. So that'll give us clarity in terms of just what the Cowboys, presumably the team that will have his rights at that time, maybe not. But if they let him go, someone else is going to pay him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the team that probably lost Dak is probably hurting right now, especially with this QB landscape right now. So that's the ideal move to do in a rebuild.
Like, and likely a contender. Dak's gotten them so much production, and they don't want. They see, okay, if they're a 4-1, or I guess we're week 6. If they're a 4-2 or 5-1 team, they're probably looking to get that quarterback production back. So, yeah, that would be a good move to target.
Absolutely. So we wound up having a lot of questions, so I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit to our Call Your Shot. What Dan and I do is we pick a player that we think is going to have a big week. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's completely under the radar, but somebody who you like more than most, and basically a bold prediction for the week. And what we're going to do is do a year-long contest between me and Dan. Whoever loses, the winner is going to get to design a Twitter avatar for the other guy that he has to use during the NFL playoffs through the Super Bowl. And appreciate all your questions. Let's see. So who are we going to go with? Rocky, we'll go with you first. Who do you go ahead and call your shot?
Okay, yeah, I'm going with David Johnson, and I have that he's going to get 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns this week. The Packers are kind of middle of the pack in terms of yardage, giving up rushing yardage, but they've given up a touchdown, at least 1 touchdown every game. That's including 1 to Kerryon Johnson and 2 to Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, Kamara, and there's one other guy I'm forgetting.
Well, last week Ronald Jones had 2.
Yeah, Ronald Jones had 2. So anyone who's listened to me knows I'm not the biggest Ronald Jones fan. But so there's definite touchdown upside there. It's the highest over-under of the week, and the lines makers seem to think that the Texans can stay in the game. It's only 3.5, and even if they don't, that's why I made it 100 total yards. DJ will be involved in the run game. So I mean the pass game. so I think that I think the 100 yards is almost a lock, and if they can stay in the game and score some points, those 2 touchdowns, I don't know what it is, but the Packers seem to be giving them up every week. So I'll go with that.
I mean, even last year, as great as their defense played, they were really vulnerable to short yardage runs and gave up a lot of touchdowns. And, I mean, total yards also includes, if they have the audacity to put their lead running back out on returns, like he did early in his career, total yards would include that too, not just scrimmage yards. So smart. That's how you play.
And which, by the way, too, they also they're 7th in the league in receiving yards to running backs. And that's despite having played 1 less game than most of the other teams that are in the top 7. So
that's a lot from Kamara, but yeah, it's been a problem.
That's true. A big part of it was.
Kamara. Here we go.
Hey,
he wasn't lying. He said he was going to join us.
Let's see how it is.
Yeah. Figure stop by. Say hello.
You want to jump in and call your shot?
Yeah, it's going to be J-Joe outscoring Visca again.
All right.
That's all I came in to say.
Against the Giants, that might be a good bet, yeah.
Yeah, the Giants. Preston Williams sucks. Go Birds.
Go Birds. EHELES, Eagles.
You're doing a great job. Thanks for filling in, Kyle.
Yeah, no worries. Love it.
All right, pay attention to the road there, Eagle Day.
Yeah, go Birds. Happy Jay.
There, I wanted that vigor. That's what I wanted, that energy, that combativeness we get in the...
I know, of all weeks we can't make it. It's the Giants and the Eagles, of course. Yeah. I think he's scared that we're going to pull off the upset, which, knowing the Giants, they'll win about 4 or 5 meaningless games and ruin their draft pick, so I wouldn't be surprised if somehow...
Knowing this division...
If they keep Gettleman, he's going to mess up the draft pick anyway, so it doesn't really matter where they...
Gettleman's gone. That's we'll see.
Giants fans can only hope. Adam Gase is the worst coach in the league, but the worst GM is the other New York's GM now. Well, after Bill O'Brien got fired, there was a few month stretch where Gettleman actually lost that title, but it's back.
Yeah, I completely agree. But all right, Dustin, who's your shot that you're going to call?
So I had to change mine. My original one was Michael Thomas was going to go for 10 catches and 100 yards, but now he's probably not going to play.
Which I have him on my home league, and he's killing me.
Yeah, I have him in a couple leagues, and it's we traded for him in our listener league, and turns out to be a terrible trade.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I changed it. This seems like a Deshaun Jackson game tonight. So I actually have Deshaun breaking 100 yards and scoring a touchdown and a 20-plus point PPR game. Just seems like Deshaun is like a primetime type player.
Especially against the Giants.
Yep, against the Giants, prime time, he's back. Like, it just seems like a Deshaun game. So I have him going over 100 and a touchdown. And sorry, Jay, but I'm going with Rocky.
I hope you're right, Dustin.
Yeah,
well,
I just traded him to you today.
So I kind of hope you're right, but it'll still hurt. But at least I'll have to get the points from Wentz. So
yeah, it seems like a game for him. So
it does. It never fails. Deshaun Jackson shows up against, like you said, prime time and against the Giants. So I definitely could see it happening. So Kyle, I know you jumped in last minute, but what's your shot that you're going to call for this week?
Well, good timing on my part, because this might be the only week where I could maybe possibly have this happen. So, Raheem Mostert on injured reserve, Jeff Wilson banged up, not sure what his role is going to look like, and McKinnon kind of looking like the pass catching back for the 49ers a bit, but not sure if that's a role he's going to lose. Now that my favorite UDFA ever, Jermichael Hasty, I've been hyping him up all off season like nobody's business. Every dynasty rookie draft I was in, he was a 4th round pick. Make sure I have him on every roster. My shot is that he's going to be a top 24 running back this week. The Patriots allowed a lot of production on the ground last week to running backs, and I do wonder maybe, considering the 49ers and who they have on that team, George Kittle, I feel like that's what Belichick's going to want to take away George Kittle. So maybe that leaves more vulnerability on the ground. And for a rookie who can catch passes like Hasty, as he did throughout college, I think maybe that's a matchup that he could be used with so much attention to the tight ends over the middle. A target could maybe get open. So yeah, I like it in all, half point or PPR leagues. I think standard top 24 for Hasty is maybe a little much, but I think in any type of point per reception league, I think he definitely has that potential this week.
Do people still play in standard leagues, to be honest with you? I mean, I know there's few and far between. I know the terminology, but PPR is pretty much the standard these days, or at least, have PPR. But for my call your shot, I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson finally breaking through and having a 20-point game. He came onto the scene last year with a huge week 1 and then kind of fizzled out. He's been pretty consistent this year. He's had three out of his 5 games. He's at double digits. He's got the most touchdowns on the lines. He's second in targets on the team. And he's just been right there. I feel like he's, getting close to getting that breakout. And he's going up against Atlanta, who gives up, I believe, the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Their defense sucks. The Lions' defense suck. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. And I think that this is the game that Hawkinson breaks out this year and is going to have over 20 points.
I love it. I love Hawkinson. He's my guy.
Yeah, like I think Atlanta's been brutal against tight ends.
Yep, absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for content-wise. We do have a couple housekeeping things to take care of. First, Rocky and Dustin, thank you guys for coming on. What we like to do with our guests, and Kyle, since technically you're a guest on the show, I'll have you do one of these as well. You guys could just give us a little something about yourselves that the fantasy community doesn't know about you. Dustin, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, so I actually started back fantasy back in I think 2001, but it was actually fantasy baseball is where I started. Where I came in. The same time. So I actually used to work for the Seattle Mariners, and I worked for them for about 8 or 9 years. I managed one of their team stores, so I actually had field access and clubhouse access. So I met Ichiro and Felix and Ibanez and Beltray. So I got to go play softball with the team and stuff like that. So that's what really brought me in. And so I'm still a diehard Mariners fan, even though they have the longest playoff drought in professional sports right now. But yeah, so I grew up, actually my number one sport growing up was basketball. I grew up a Sonics fan. Obviously 95, 96 Sonics were my team, but fantasy baseball is kind of what brought me in. Right when I was working for the Mariners, it kind of happened all at the same time. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I came in.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast. This is actually my first ever live show.
Okay.
Oh no, second.
Yeah, we did
open bar.
We also did fantasy timeline.
Oh, was that live? I didn't know. Anyway,
that's why you did so well that day. No pressure. You were great. You were great, Dustin.
So yeah, no,
And you
excited.
too, Rocky.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming on. Rocky, let's go with you. What's something that the fantasy community doesn't know about?
I'm pretty boring. I don't have anything as interesting as Dustin just said. I basically am work and family and fantasy football. But so I did dip back into my childhood. I actually did mention this on one other podcast, so a few people might have heard me say this before. But I once appeared on local television as a skating clown in the Philly Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Really? That is definitely pretty interesting. Do we have a video or a picture or anything?
There might be a tape somewhere, a VCR tape, because we definitely taped it in my household so we could see ourselves on TV. It's only like, I think, 10 seconds or something that you can see us. And we have all the clown makeup on, me and my sister and my mom. Because my mom was a big skater back in the day when she was younger. And somehow her and some of her friends got into this thing for the Thanksgiving Day Parade and were allowed to bring their kids. So it was cool. Definitely, yeah, we definitely thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, that's kind of my little weird, interesting fact.
That's awesome. All the younger people who are watching is like, what the heck is a VCR?
I know, yeah.
Well, Kyle, we know you host War Room Live you're on the Monday show or the Sunday show?
Monday night. Yeah.
Okay. And so give us a little something interesting about yourself that people may not know.
So maybe echo a little bit of what Dustin's saying. Fantasy football isn't the only fantasy sport. I do like to play fantasy hocky, but doing that, it was a Canadian, right? The stereotypical introduction to fantasy sports, fantasy hockey.
Fantasy hockey, and I'm in North Carolina, so.
I also know you're a Hurricanes fan, so.
Yeah.
But so I start in fantasy sports really when I was 6-7 years old. So it's been kind of a passion there, especially since I found fantasy football. Then it's grown, exploded, and I can do live shows and talk about it so much.
Right.
My wife and I play fantasy currently. I know it's not really something that's available on a lot of platforms. We kind of just do it manually ourselves, but that's any fantasy sport I can get my hands on.
And that's one I've done just about everything. I've done fantasy NASCAR, I've done fantasy golf, I've done it all, but curling, that's a new one. I've never done that before.
Never heard of that.
We invented a format, so maybe I should sell to all these websites.
Did you guys do fantasy XFL?
I do fantasy CFL, but I mean not this year. But most years.
I know there was a fantasy XFL going on back before it got shut down. Yeah,
Moletto, I think did it too. I think there's a couple others that were in on that.
Yeah, I was a little too busy with the draft to go in that. I thought I'd have fantasy CFL but no, not this year, unfortunately. Nah. Hopefully next year. Hopefully sometime ever again, please. That's
I know.
My rant of the day.
Well, and the question that we ask every guest that comes on here, Kyle, I know you're excited about this one. It's not football related, but it's always a good conversation. We'll start with you, Dustin, and then we'll go around the room. Dan and I made it well known that we believe Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. So, Dustin, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
It's MJ. You have to go with Michael Jordan. Like this could be a whole show talking about these two.
Maybe we need to do
I'll jump on for that. No, it's MJ for me. He has that killer instinct that you don't see from anyone. Like he's the one that he makes up arguments in his head. Like if you guys saw the Last Dance documentary, he makes up stories just so he can go attack a team. Just so he can go attack a player.
In your head saying, water sucks.
Yeah, so he just you don't see that from anybody else, and yeah, so it's Jordan.
Okay.
Is that Rocky me next or Kyle? Okay. I'm with Dustin. It's MJ. I believe I'm not positive, but I believe I may be the oldest person here, so probably seen the most actual Michael Jordan. And yeah, when he was on, he couldn't be stopped. LeBron's great. I think it's closer than maybe some people think. LeBron's probably a better passer than MJ, but he also, I think, maybe likes to pass it a little too much sometimes. Like Dustin said, MJ had the killer instinct, and he's just – I don't think we're ever going to have anybody that I'm going to agree is better than Michael Jordan. If LeBron isn't, I'm not sure how there's going to be somebody else. So,
and a lot of people think that when I say that I think MJ's better than LeBron, it's not saying that LeBron isn't one of the best ever. I mean, anybody who doesn't say he's, top 5, top 3, you're out of your mind. I mean, you are just being a hater. But it's just like you said. For me, it's always been the killer instinct. In those big moments, he's a good passer. He passes the ball away. Ray Allen hit the big shot for him. Kyrie Irving hit the big shot for him. So there's no doubt LeBron is one of the best ever. But for me, I'll be 30. I got to think about it. That's how old I am. I'll be 34 this year. So I got to see, not his rookie years, but, in the early and mid 90s, I got to see the tail end of his career and see all of LeBron. So we were talking about Adam Ronis last night and, how lucky we are to be able to watch both of those guys, in our lifetimes. Not a lot of people are going to be able to say that. So, Kyle, I know you've got a little different answer for this one. So let's.
Okay, so we'll start with the MJ LeBron debate, and I think that LeBron is a locked-in top 5 all-time NBA player. There's really no debate to that. But I also think it's close, but not particularly close. So I'm a numbers guy, right? Got to look into the numbers. A few things like LeBron's longevity. He's been to 10 finals, 16-time All-Star, 13-time All First Team NBA. There's some things that kind of point in his direction. Okay, can make the arguments there, but if I could find it, to me, it's the scoring stats, right? 10 times Michael Jordan's led the league in scoring. LeBron only ever did that once. And yes, LeBron, amazing passer, but he's also only ever led the league in assist once. And you look at their points per game. Regular season, MJ's at 30.1, LeBron at 27.1. Like to see both of them raise in the playoffs. 33.4 for Michael, 28.9 for LeBron. So as just a pure scorer, I'm gonna win the game with my shot. It has to be MJ. Now, debate for greatest of all time in basketball. I think it's a very tricky debate because I think you almost have to separate the guards from the big men. And maybe LeBron almost breaks the system because he's so versatile, which is maybe what you'd give him the edge. But if I had to say anyone else, I might actually say Wilt Chamberlain.
Well,
so Chamberlain, and just looking at the numbers, the one thing that, he's a 4-time MVP. MJ's got 5. So MJ doesn't edge him out that much. 7 times he was the scoring champion. Quite significant number. 11 times led the league in rebounds. And I know he's got records. I believe he's got the single season record for minutes played. Like, this is a dude that was always on the court. And defensively and offensively was such a weapon for his team. Yeah, he somehow he had 48 and a half minutes played average in 61-62. I'm assuming that
overtime,
Well, so much overtime, or did basketball used to be longer back then? Like maybe instead of 48 minutes, did they get to 50 minutes or something?
No, I think they were still 48 minutes then. It's just he played almost every minute of every game, including the overtimes. That's why. Yeah. So he also set because he played so much. I believe this is the year he scored 100 points, and maybe that's why he's always on the court. 50.4 points per game that season. That is just insane, ridiculous. So in terms of scoring, the only one that's really come close to like what Michael's done is Wilt Chamberlain. And if I'm building a team, I want MJ as a guard and Wilt as a big man, and I could have 3 other scrubs, and I think I could win a championship. So I think I'd probably lean Wilt just to give a different answer, but it's really tough to judge between MJ and Chamberlain. As a Philly guy, I love that you brought Wilt into the conversation.
So interesting story. So I was growing up when I was really big into basketball, and I would go to my grandma's house, or my great grandma, and she's like, "Hey, Dustin, I have something to show you." And so my grandma grew up in LA, and she pulled me into her room, and she's like, "This is all my private collectible stuff." So back then, like, they didn't have as much like security and stuff at games and stuff like that. So at one point in the game, she ran down onto the court, onto the bench, and sat in between Wilt and Jerry West and had her picture taken with both of them. She had her arms around Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West before she got kicked out of the game. She didn't even go to jail. They just kicked her out. And so she had this giant picture of her with, I was like, "Grandma, like, do you know what, like, this is incredible." I was like, I had no idea. And like, when I remember her, like, she was late 70s, early 80s. I was like, "Grandma, like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like, this is fantastic."
Yeah.
So, just, Wilt is probably the easy answer. Like, he's really the only other guy that could probably really, I think, beat out Michael.
I remember seeing this documentary, and someone was talking about it. Was this, a ranking show, and someone mentioned before MJ came in the league, Wilt Chamberlain was considered the best ever. Like there wasn't really anyone close, and Michael Jordan kind of totally changed the game. But yeah, it seems like it would be one of those two for me. And I could even argue LeBron at 3. I think that get some great. There's a few other great players, but yeah, I think it's a pretty solid top 3 of all time. And
I think we need to do a whole show, nothing but the MJ versus LeBron debate, and get people from across the fantasy football community and get them on and state their case. That would be a lot of fun. So, well, I seriously appreciate all 3 of you guys coming on. Dustin and Rocky, our planned guest, Kyle, jumping in last minute. One thing I always like to add to, if you have guys who are playing tonight, get them out of your flex. Put them in the running back. Maybe you got a tight end, but, put them in their respective positions so you don't tie up that flex spot, especially with everything we're going on with this year with COVID. That extra flexibility could be key. You can find my work. I do a start sit at Sleeper Wire once a week. I also do my 10 things to know about the current week at Going for Two. Here every Thursday night at 7 p.m. usually with Dan. We've been having guests. You can follow me on Twitter at GMenJ, and we'll go around the room one more time. Plug anything you guys want. Tell people where they can find your stuff. Dustin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm Dustin at Dynasty Junkie FF on Twitter. Just follow me at Dynasty Junkie FF, and follow our we do the Dynasty Junkies podcast at Dynasty Junkies on I think we're on Spotify, iTunes, Google, basically anywhere you can find podcasts. So definitely check us out. We put it out probably once a week. Every once in a while, Rocky gets out there and wants to just do some off the wall episodes. But we midweek every week, and I just appreciate you guys having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Go ahead, Rocky.
Okay, and I'm at Dynasty FF Addict. Basically everything Justin said about the Junkie Show. We got a lot of good guests on there, including one next week. Jay. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was okay to announce or anything yet, but yeah, I'm going to be on.
No, it's fine. Yeah, Jay's going to be on next week, and we've had a lot of other good guests as well. And just the only thing I would add to what Dustin said is also the network that I mentioned earlier, Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. Follow that at DAP_network, and follow those shows, Trade Addicts, and listen to those shows and subscribe. Trade Addicts Podcast, which I'm sure a lot of people already are listening to, and Fantasy Timeline, which is also pretty popular as well. So great stuff over there. Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it. It's been a great time.
Yeah, I just gotta say, again, I'm jumping the gun on Jay. He's the host. But yeah, first off, thanks, Rocky, Dustin. Really enjoyed meeting you, interacting. You're both really knowledgeable. It was great to hang out for the last hour and a half and talk and get to know you. It's great. Thank you all the listeners. A lot of great questions. So many questions.
We did. We had a lot of questions tonight.
Yeah, it was good. Glad to see the engagement, and hopefully we helped you as best you can. Again, thank you, Jay, for the opportunity. Thanks, Dan, for not being able to be here to give me that opportunity.
Dan, if you're still
yeah, thank you, Dan, for not being on the show, right? And I didn't write my Twitter handle on the screen, so you have to just remember it. It's at Senra Says. Alliterations are awesome. I, as well as doing the Monday Night War Room, I also co-host the Full Press Fantasy Pod. So you check us out at FPC_Fantasy Pod.
All right, well, that'll do it. Thank you guys again, Dustin and Rocky, for being our guest, Kyle for stepping in for Dan. Good for nothing, Dan, worrying about doing stuff with his family instead of being on the show with us. So, but last thing I will say is good luck, Rocky, in tonight's game. I know the Giants will probably blow it, but I still got to throw a Go Giants in there. We always have trouble in Philadelphia, but maybe
with this division, I predict another tie.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. So. Good luck, everybody, in your Week 7 matchups. We'll see you next week.